I got to do a news update because it's important, and I'm reading the news. Is George, Crow, and Claire.
Hey, how you doing?
By the way, that's sweet little Paisley, who used to be our friend, Caveman Jammer. You've seen him on my videos, but he left. I won't say where, but hopefully he's gonna go to a good place and things will work out for my friend Caveman. I knew he was leaving. So Paisley is now the pet of Claire and Crow. And George, believe it or not, this is a little beautiful little dog named Princess that was like a stray. She showed up and George kind of adopted her. So you saw some. She's real cute.
She's a beautiful dog.
I got to do a little news, and that's why I started this up, because I do my news. You know, on the other video, I'll do the quick update because I credited Mr. Obama with being somewhat, you know, an elder statesman, if you will. But then I saw some of the highlights. And I have not been critical of Mr. Obama, even only when I felt I should be. But one of the highlights on maybe CNN is how hard is it to say that Nazis are bad? In the speech that he gave today, I read excerpts of it. He said that Trump is not the symptom or not the source of all the problems of racial divisions, politics, and things like that. He said, but Trump is a symptom of it. I don't believe he's even a symptom of it, to be honest with you. But he basically was saying we have to get away from racial politics in the sense of... But then when he made the statement, how hard is it to say that Nazis are bad? You know, Mr. Farrakhan, recently, I forget who sat next to Mr. Farrakhan. Mr. Farrakhan openly would say that the white man is the devil. A lot of racial things Louis Farrakhan has said. And Obama and others did not say they aligned themselves with his views, but they had moments, if you will, of praise or never denouncing Mr. Farrakhan for a lot of racial stuff. And I think Obama did something that was tragically bad. The reference, how hard is it to say that Nazis are bad? Immediately he interjected black and white race into it again. Because what he's referring to is these last year and a half or so, you've had various people protest. And some people who are white have questioned. I have honestly said over the last few years that we have particular policies in our country that permit, and courts have permitted, that if you apply to a university because of the way things have happened, you are openly allowed to discriminate against a white candidate and also some Asians. You are allowed to openly say, you are white, and we looked at your application, even if it's an 18-year-old white girl that was in poverty. You see, they're not looking at. So you could have an 18-year-old white girl because of what we have in the system that it's come out, affirmative action and all. And you could actually, a university could actually say, you're applying and you have certain grades, but you're white. And because we want someone that's black, we turn you down because you're white. Now anybody, black or white or anything, should be able to say that's racist and that's wrong. And you have many black leadership who would tell you, no, that's right. Openly. Whether it's a Maxine Waters, Carl Lewis, whoever, or Mr. Obama. If you were to say, wait a minute, do you think it's correct to turn down a white person because they're white and they're applying for college? And many of them would say yes, because they're supporters of affirmative action. Now, I've spoken on that in the past and said, that's wrong. and I've advocated for the minorities as well. But you'll have hardly any Democrat, any Kohler Times, any Obama, or any of them admit the truth to you that that indeed is wrong. To discriminate because of race. All right. Now you have younger people that have grown up, coming up, and they've seen things like that. You've had some white kids on college campuses basically test not the limits, but they would maybe put a shirt on that said, "I'm proud to be white." Get that shirt off, kicked out of the campus. The words, "I'm proud to be white," on a shirt are deemed Nazi and racist. But you're allowed to put, "I'm proud to be black, I'm proud to be Hispanic." But if you put, "I'm proud to be white," you're out. Now, kids are not stupid. They've understood that, and some kids in the college campuses have done things like, "We're going to start a group just for white people, outlawed. You're racist and you're a Nazi." But then they said, "But you have groups that are just for black association in our Congress itself. You have what's called the Congressional Black Caucus. You should not be able to have that. It would be racist, and people would say Nazi if you had a Congressional Black Caucus." So that singular statement that Mr. Obama made today, he just riled the race divide. Okay? It wasn't a question on how hard is it to say that Nazis are bad. It was a debate, and some of the protests in the last few years, and granted, Mr. Trump did not articulate it right. Because when he said at one point, there were good people on both sides, he didn't say it right. But what he meant to say was what I just explained. There are a lot of sincerely held beliefs that people had that were not rooted in racism. Okay? The question about removing statues and all of these things, and war people and the names of schools and all, a lot of you are familiar with. So it was irresponsible for him to do that. Number two, I didn't mention on the last video that Russia just again, our U.S. fighter jets intercepted within the last, might have been today, I think it was today, but they just intercepted within the last few days a couple of more Russian nuclear bomber planes right off of Alaska. Now, sometimes these things happen as, look, they're going to push limits and all. What I tried to express on the first news update today was the thing going on in Syria right now, meaning they're going to try and get the rebels, or if you will, the terrorists, according to whose definition you use. They're going to get them out of that city I mentioned in Syria. And the U.S. and Nikki Haley, even today at the UN, basically is saying any action like that, we're going to deem it like almost to the point of we're going to do something, the U.S. And Russia said about a week ago, and Syria said, there's going to be a false flag. If the rebels think they're going to lose in this town, this city I mentioned, they're going to do a chemical thing. They will, not Assad. That's what the Russians are saying. Now, if that's so, and if it happens, you could have a big conflict going on. That's why it's important that we didn't fill the news cycle this last year with Russia, 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 bad collusion, Russia, bad collusion, Russia. But you have a British spy, Michael Steele, doing all types of illegal things, working with undercover, to undermine a white president. Now you had to throw race into it, Obama. Now, the New York Times today, and I had to think it through, they asked Mr. Trump, I think he referred the New York Times anonymous op-ed to the Justice Department. And as I looked at it, meaning this, if with that op-ed in the New York Times, which came out yesterday, it basically said there are people within the administration who are seeking to thwart the agenda of President Trump. Meaning, if they think there's a national security issue and that paper is put on Trump's desk, they even said in the op-ed that we then remove it because we don't want him to make a decision that we think is wrong. Now, if that op-ed is true, and there are people within the administration that are actually not putting information to Mr. Trump because they disagree with his agenda, that's not just an opinion piece, mind you. That's saying that's an admission of a crime, you see. You cannot have people working within the White House who are saying we are thwarting the agenda of the president. We're actually hiding documents of national security from him because we feel he would make the wrong decision. So now you're saying you have unelected people that are appointed who are now making the decisions. That's exactly what that New York Times op-ed said. And the New York Times is defending themselves against revealing the source. They're saying we are protecting freedom of speech. Actually, that's not what this is about. That would be like if I had freedom of speech and I wrote an op-ed and said I murdered people. Meaning I revealed a crime that I personally am presently involved in the op-ed. And then you say, well, we're protecting that op-ed from someone who confessed to murder because we're protecting the freedom of speech. This is different here. So I actually agree now that the source would have to be investigated and exposed because you put Reality Winner in jail for 5 years because she released certain information. And I'm a supporter of Reality Winner. I can't explain it. But if you have people within the administration openly saying we're doing it in secret, we're thwarting the agenda of an American president, regardless if you agree with his agenda or not, and we're actually actively taking national security papers that are put on his desk, and we're hiding them, well, you can't have that. So the New York Times actually needs to reveal the source, and the Justice Department should indeed look into it. But the terrible thing was Obama. That was the top headline. How hard is it to say that Nazis are bad? Let me ask you, Mr. Obama, how hard was it to say that Louis Farrakhan was bad? You didn't see, you interjected something that you should have never done. Okay? I had to do that update.